My friends. So I love introducing new guests to the audience. Hala has come by way of her employee. So her employee is Steve Cooper, who I had a few episodes back. And then we reached out and we connected. I said, you're going to be great. You're going to be so great for this podcast. You have so much to offer. Hala, before I drive people nuts and not give people your full name and what you do for this world, tell us who you are and what you do.
Francesca, thank you for having me, and thanks to Steve Cooper for connecting us. I am Hala Schawaf Barson, and I am the co-founder and CEO of VoIP Doctors Business Telecom. Long story short, we help other businesses and organizations with everything related to their telecommunications needs and help them leverage modern communications technology to do it more efficiently, save some money, and keep their businesses moving forward.
Which is all of us need that. So is that like voice over internet, Hala?
Yes.
That's what it is, right?
That's exactly what it is. Voice over high-speed internet.
Awesome. Oh gosh, what an incredible tool that we all need today, right?
For sure. And the pandemic really accelerated the adoption of this technology that's been gaining traction for, the last 20 years or so. But I feel like more of us understand the acronym VoIP now than we did a couple of years ago, but it really has been a lifesaver for a lot of organizations who had to pivot to remote or hybrid remote work, and now may never come back to the office full time.
Right. It's a great solution that we were all looking for. So we were just, going over a few things in the green room, and excuse me, I love to talk about everyone's like aha moments, right? And what brought you to starting this business, Hala? So let's unpack that amazing story that we were talking about in the green room, and what brought you to this business.
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack there. There's about 15 years on the corporate side for me. I came from the financial services industry. As you know, we were sort of in each other's orbits years ago in Philadelphia. And my husband comes from about 20 years of IT and telecommunications engineering. So he is the computer geek. I am, and I say that with all the love in the world. His brain's amazing. I can't do what he does. He's phenomenal. And I came to this business through the, financial management and strategy and business development side of things. We met during a period of transition in our personal and professional lives. Happened to be at a yoga class that was hosted by mutual friends. And afterwards, we went and grabbed a cup of tea, and we were talking, and had no idea if we'd ever see each other again. It was a chance meeting. But when we got to talking about the world outside of that class, right, and this moment that we were in, he said, so what do you want to do? And he said, well, I'd love to start my own business someday and do what I've always done, but do it for myself and directly for my clients, taking all of the industry expertise that he developed, whether he was working for Fortune 500 companies or boutique firms. And I said, funny story. There's not a lot that I feel like I know a lot about right now, except starting and scaling businesses. That I know how to do. So before we left that day, I'd sketched out the bare bones of what a business plan ought to include on the back of a napkin.
I love that story. The best businesses have been crafted on the back of a napkin.
There you go. I
love that story.
There you
go.
What
What a beautiful story. But you had some reservations, right? You had some reservations about stepping into that, starting your business. Is that right? What has held you back in the past?
Yeah. So it's funny, by the time we actually got to starting our business, there was some bravery involved, but there was also a kind of knowingness, a kind of, this is terrifying, but I think this is where we're supposed to be feeling. I grew up, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day, but I grew up with a huge fear of failure. And I think a lot of kids do, and I think especially a lot of young women do. Failure was not an option. Anything less than an A+ was not an option. Overachievement was the norm in my work, in academia and in my career. And so that led to a real fear of failure, huge imposter syndrome that I like spent a lot of energy hiding. And logically, I would have told you, I'm really good at what I do. I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm good at communicating with different kinds of people, whether they're technical or whether they're lay people or somewhere in between. You know, I'm good at connecting different folks who need to know each other, and I'm good at finding solutions for things, right? Like, part of me knew I was qualified for whatever job I was in, and part of me was terrified that somebody was going to find out that I had no idea what I was doing.
Wow.
And so I always had this sort of nagging, actually very like physical sensation of
Wow.
fear. Can you imagine every single day?
Wow. Like you said, a nagging feeling. It's overwhelming. Like you can't stop that. So thank you for describing it, because a lot of us, including myself, hand is raised, that imposter syndrome is an everyday thing. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So during the couple of years that preceded the founding of our business, some of the worst things that I could have ever imagined happening in my personal life happened, but I lived through them. Right? Like nothing, nothing that I couldn't come back from happened during that time. And so I still had my list of should do's. You know, I should seek an executive corporate position. I should, you know, seek positions of responsibility that are very visible and right, that like demonstrate the accomplishments that we overachievers are supposed to have. And all that nonsense, really, in the scheme of things in life, it doesn't mean much.
Right.
It's fancy window dressing, but it's nothing to do with who you are and what your gifts might be to the world, whether that's your family circle or whether that's truly the global community and the legacy that you might leave long after your life here is over.
Right.
So that's really big stuff to wrap into, like, so why'd you start a business?
Yeah, that is big stuff, but it's important to know and share. And I appreciate you sharing it, because I know a lot of other people are dealing with it too, or have dealt with it. Yeah. So I guess my next question is, without going too much deeper, but just explaining, were there daily practices for you that help uplift yourself out of that? Like, what did you turn to, Hala, that helped you craft yourself into the being that you are today?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because a lot of figuring out what life looked like after those big life-changing events involved daily practices, habits, routines. It could be as simple as like making sure that coffee was set up for the next morning. But it also involved learning to say no to things that were maybe demands on my time and energy, that because I was also a people pleaser, I was to say, sure, I'll take that on. Of course I'll do that, you know, and learning to carve those boundaries out and hold fast and not feel the urge to explain too much about why there was a boundary. Just say, you know what, no, I won't be able to do that, you know, or that's not something I can take on at this time. And then using that time for rest, for reading, for reflection. I really paid attention to who in my world I admired, who seemed to be on either a personal journey that I was really curious about and like envious of in a good way.
Sure.
Right? As in, I aspire to grow in a similar way, right?
Right.
And who was on a professional journey that I admired, you know, and to pay attention to what those people were doing and saying, and to find a way to have conversations with them and find out, what their backstory was. How did you get to this place where it seems like you're really okay and
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How did they talk about how they coped with setbacks? How did they talk about those pivotal moments in their own lives and their own professions? So it really was about making boundaries and carving out space to be,
Right.
to
To
be
be.
still, to be,
Yeah.
and to
To
be
be.
still. Yeah,
I love that. So it's making boundaries and respecting them those boundaries for yourself, and then you could be a better person for others, right? So that's just incredible. So it's no surprise to me that you've been able to lead an incredible business and growth strategy in the past couple of years, right? And to me, it also shows, and to everyone else out there listening, how important it is to have that personal balance, to have that professional success, right? A lot of my most recent episodes have been about this balance, this harmony, and how important it is. And we were kind of forced into it 2 years ago, right? We were kind of forced into it, and we fought and kicked and screamed and said, no, no, no. And now we're saying, okay, now I've had this chance, and now recognize the importance of the balance of the two. So thank you for sharing that. I live by that philosophy too, Hala, and love that you shared it from a personal perspective. So, because it gives you confidence, right? When you do things like this, you have the confidence to take the next step in your day.
absolutely. It does. And even in the most gut-wrenching, and let me just say, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It's not always a walk in the park. So, but there are days when I still have that heart pounding, gosh, what do I do with this decision? And you call in the people that you trust. You have advisors in your business. You have peers that you trust. You have mentors. You pull those people, right?
Right.
And what's the worst that's going to happen when you work for yourself? Your job is to keep your clients happy and well taken care of, and to keep your team happy and well taken care of,
Right.
to make sure that they have the support that they need. But remembering that ultimately the worst that can happen is, again, very survivable.
Yes.
Helps to get over that, that angst on the inside, even on the most stressful days.
Agreed. So is there something that you wear, you put on? So here's my fun question that I like to ask everybody. Is there an article of clothing or an accessory that when you put it on, Hala, that day is going to be a great day? How does something like that make you feel? And what is it?
So I would tell you that it is a collection of accessories and clothing. My favorite pieces are artist made by artists whom I know in the real world, and I love them dearly. They're also, powerful, spiritual, successful, entrepreneurial women. And they are just so incredibly talented at what they do. And they're also so generous in how they share their work with the world. So it is an absolute privilege for me to be able to collect their work on occasion, and to carry it with me every day. So you see a few pieces here.
Yeah, beautiful.
These two are made by my friends Danielle and Chris Merzada. This chain was made by Maya Kinney, who is another artist friend of mine and an incredible jeweler. And I also wear a lot of work by Hannah Long, who is a metalsmith and jeweler, again, incredibly talented and a beautiful soul, based out of Philadelphia. And when I put those pieces on, it's almost like my armor for going out into the world. But it's also carrying a piece of these people who have such strength and such grace and such talent with me.
I love that relatedness. I love that connection. And it just, it embraces all of you as you embrace these people with you. So thank you for sharing that. It's, we are here to support other businesses, and we recognize that a lot when we're smaller businesses. When I was in the big corporate world, we don't really deal with small businesses, but now being in the space that you and I are in, prior to magnanimous growth, we're recognizing we're here to support others just like us. So I love that story. So, Hala, if someone wanted to continue this awesome conversation, I mean, just from a leadership perspective, from a kindness perspective, you have so much to offer. Where's the best place that people can find you?
So we are all over the social channels. LinkedIn is probably the number one, and our company is at VoIP Doctors on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Great.
So that's a great way.
Awesome. So what I'll do for everyone who's listening is I'll put all of those links in the show notes so they can find you and learn more about your company. And obviously it's a cutting edge technology that we should all consider anyway. So I appreciate you sharing that, and for being in business, because you're helping us all for sure. But thank you so much for your time today. I just love your approach. Corporate does kind things to us when we get to do it on our own. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Francesca. It's been a wonderful conversation. I look forward to continuing.
Thank you.